Hey everyone, Carl here with Littleroot Lessons, bringing you a deep dive featuring Rapid Strike Urshifu. This was voted on our Twitter poll from last week. Super excited to talk about this Pokemon. This was honestly our first pick when it came to Urshifu forms that were going to do well. We thought that the Dark form was going to struggle too much with its 4x Fairy weakness, because at the time Togekiss was very, very popular, which overall kind of played out how we expected. Dark Urshifu was really popular at the start, and now we're into the point where Rapid Strike Urshifu is the more dominant Urshifu form. But before we get started on all that, make sure to check us out on Twitter so you can follow along for polls. Mimikyu has come second, I think, every time so far, so we might be seeing a Mimikyu in the near future for a deep dive. But we also have a whole bunch of different options there for people to pick from, so would love to see and hear feedback on that. Remember to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, do all that fun YouTube stuff. It would help us out a ton. And let's just get started with Waterfu for the sake of saving time. Rapid Strike Urshifu, I'm just going to call it probably Waterfu from now on, just save time and breath, is a super offensive Pokemon introduced in the Isle of Armor. Its main role is to just deal tons of damage with its signature move, Surging Strikes, and being able to hit through Protect with its signature ability, Unseen Fist. The way Unseen Fist works is it is contact moves, bypass Protect, so you can't get away with just anything. They have to create contact, so things like Close Combat, Surging Strikes, Aqua Jet, most of the physical moves that run into Pokemon are what we commonly see on Urshifus. Like I mentioned earlier, it was once the lesser played Urshifu form. Urshifu Dark was very, very popular in Series 6 and 7, 8, and a lot of the time we didn't see Waterfu unless it was paired with like a Colossal as like a way to activate policy and still having a decent offensive attacker. Think Colossal, Rillaboom, Incineroar, or Landorus, Water Urshifu, Dragapult, things like that. However, in Series 10, this Waterfu is kind of developed into this more bulky, offensive attacker with like Mystic Water. You're sacrificing speed and into bulk and HP because you can get to certain damage thresholds the same way without having to invest a ton to attack because you're using the item Mystic Water, Wave Incense, Sea Incense, or whichever one of those that you prefer. There's also obviously other sets that we've seen in the past, like Focus Sash sets and Choice Scarf sets, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But a lot of the Urshifus you're seeing now in Series 10 are very bulky and still hit just as hard as they did back in Series 7 and 9. Common partners for Urshifu tend to be in that Fire, Water, Grass core. Think Incineroar, Rillaboom, Amoonguss, Entei, stuff like that. Usually it pairs really well with those bulkier offensive mons. Regieleki and Landorus are also other options we normally see. Landorus is really good since Waterfu is weak to ground, weak to electric. Landorus being that ground type can take those attacks for it. And Regieleki kind of just helps with speed control overall and kind of deters away flying types that can be an issue for Rapid Strike Urshifu as well. When it comes to restricted choices, though, a lot of the time we see things like Zacian and Xerneas as the common partners here, mainly because those are the Pokemon that benefit the most from this Fire, Water, Grass core as a solid starting point. Zacian definitely likes having Rapid Strike Urshifu since it's very weak to ground, and you can just hit Surging Strikes into a Landorus and pick it up most of the time. Xerneas likes it mainly because you can just close combat into steel types. Xerneas has a very big weakness to Stack Attacka, and Urshifu is a very good answer to Stack Attacka. If I remember correctly, there's the whole meme of Choppleberry still doesn't survive against close combat choice band Urshifu, which is hilarious to me. But I think with Surging Strikes, you can still do a fairly decent chunk into a Stack Attacka and take it out when you need to. When you look at the metagame breakdown on how Urshifu is played and built, we see that its signature move Surging Strikes is used at 100% and Close Combat is right there behind it at 99%. I'm not surprised by this because those are the strongest moves Urshifu gets on both sides of its stab, so obvious is obvious here, use the best moves to get the most damage. Aqua Jet is more of a carryover from Colossal. We're seeing less of it now in Series 10. We're seeing more things like Helping Hand or Coaching, Detect, U-Turn, Protect, stuff like that. Not so much Aqua Jet anymore, but Aqua Jet's still usually there as an option to just pick up quick KOs and things like that. Scarf sets tend to run U-turn, which is just your get out of jail free card. If you're into a bad matchup, you're at 223, I think, with Scarf if you're max speed Jolly, or at max speed Adamant, so you can hop out really quickly and then don't have to worry about taking a super effective hit outside of things like faster Scarf mods and Aleki, which is fine. Rock Slide here is kind of cool. We don't think about Urshifu getting rock coverage and things like that, but it gives you a good answer into opposing flying types and opposing ice types and things like that. You also get Rock Tomb, which is something that we've seen on Scarf sets as well. So it's kind of interesting to see Urshifu kind of adapt and be this weird, speed control mob with like Rock Tomb, while also still having access to its Surging Strikes in close combat. When we look at items, Choice Scarf is the most played at the moment at 30%. Focus Sash is right behind it at 27%. If you take all of the Wave Incense and Sea Incense and throw it with the Mystic Water, those are also just like right there at under 30%. So it's interesting to see that these top 3 items are so close together. We normally don't see things like that in Pokemon, where it's 2 or 3 items are within a couple percentage points of each other. Rather, it's more of here's a 50 or 60%, and then a couple niche items at like 10%, and then some random stuff at the bottom. Speaking of random stuff at the bottom, did you know Protective Pads is an item? Because I didn't until today. Protective Pads means that you avoid all the contact effects when you make contact with a Pokemon. So think like Effect Spore, Flame Body, Perish Body, things like that. So it's kind of interesting that you just like see these Protective Pad sets, especially when Volcarona was really popular. You could play this Protective Pad and then Surging Strikes into Volcarona without the fear of taking burn damage. I wonder how many times people thought about, oh, I just got unlucky with the burn, when actually the Urshifu was just carrying Protective Pads. And then we see Choice Band here at 3%. This is fairly rare right now, mainly due to the fact that just like Mystic Water is just as good usually. But Choice Band Close Combat is still very powerful. Choice Band Rock Slide or Rock Tomb is still very good. Choice Band Thunder Punch, Choice Band Zen Headbutt, stuff like that. So it's kind of cool to see that these choice items are still being utilized very well on Urshifu in Series 10. When you're looking to build with Waterfu, it loves to be the high damage option in a Fire Water Grass core. Having that strict core to kind of be a switch and pivot around, keep your Urshifu alive a little bit longer is why we commonly see it paired with things like Incineroar and Rillaboom. A lot of the good Urshifu answers can't really deal with Incineroar or Rillaboom usually to that matter, so it's kind of nice to have that backup and pivot if you need it. Waterfu struggles against Pokemon that outspeed it. Being at base 97 means you just underspeed all base 100s, which is usually the threshold for these restricted formats. I know, like I said, Scarf Adamant gets to 223, Max Speed Jolly gets to 163, and one of my sets coming up is only 122. So you're sacrificing a lot in speed when you're trying to play these bulkier sets, so having good consistent speed control is very, very important for your Urshifu. And don't be afraid to think outside the box when you're building with your Waterfu. Predictability is very good, like especially on ladder, being able to predict your opponent's moves, expecting Surging Strikes, expecting close combat and things like that to kind of be able to make safer plays, means that if you are a little bit less predictable with things like Helping Hand or Rock Tomb, you can definitely get a little bit of an edge on your opponent and catch them off guard. When we're talking about movesets for Water Urshifu, as we can see here, it's fairly defensively bulky on the physical side, has really good base HP, has really good base defense. Where it lacks, though, is usually in that special defense category, and that, unfortunately, is where a lot of its weaknesses lie. Think electric types, grass types, fairy types, flying coverage usually is in the special category right now, things like that. So a lot of what these bulkier sets are doing are looking for ways to boost that special defense and keep yourselves alive a little bit longer, which is where this first set comes in. This first set hits 112 special defense because your max special defense, and hits 193 HP with your 140 investment here. We still hit really hard with Adamant Nature, Mystic Water, and the speed tier is the important tier here at 122. This requires a lot of good speed investment to make sure that you break certain thresholds. If I remember correctly, you get to what is it? Should be 180 something at +1, so if you can get a +1 speed boost on this thing somehow, that's the one way to do it. If you carry Tailwind, you can get to 244, which outspeeds Adamant Scarf, which is really cool and interesting to think about. So this set's kind of cool. This is pretty much the standard Urshifu that we've been seeing, and it does very good work. Next up, we have the Focus Sash set, which is looking to just be as fast as possible. It gets to 163 speed, not as reliant on speed control, but you still want to outspeed certain things, not get caught off guard, so you want all the speed you can get. You still hit really, really hard at 252 attack, but you're not going to be around as long to get as many hits off. And for this last set here, we see a Choice Scarf set. Again, 252 attack, 252 speed, adamant nature. Usually you don't have to invest as much into speed. You usually just want to be able to beat certain things, and 223 is the upper limit for this Pokemon, and that is fine. You're not outspeeding Aleki if you go Jolly, so don't worry about that. So you kind of just want that adamant nature, hit as hard as you possibly can. Like I mentioned, the Choice Scarf sets usually run U-turn, which is really, really cool. Rock Tomb is a really cool techie item option to have as well. Gives you a little bit of speed control on your Urshifu when it's not quite lining up correctly, or just gives you really good answers into opposing flying types that can cause issues for your other partners, like your Rillaboom. When you're looking for ways to beat up an opposing Urshifu, status is usually the primary thing that people think about, mainly due to it being essentially immune to Intimidate, thanks to Surging Strikes, and being able to hit through Protect and all that stuff makes it much harder to play against than normal. Urshifu has definitely been designed to be played in the Dynamax format, and is kind of shown how unbalanced it is outside of that, in Series 10 for sure. And Water Urshifu has a lot of weaknesses due to its typing. Water in fighting isn't the greatest when it comes to resistances. You're weak to electric, you're weak to grass, you're weak to flying, you're weak to psychic, and you're weak to fairy. So utilizing those weaknesses to your advantage is going to go a long way. Remembering to use that Thunderbolt, remembering to hit it with that grass type move, remembering to hit it with the fairy type or psychic type coverage if you have in there. It's not Darkfu where you get to remove one of those weaknesses and you're just taking a 4x from fairy instead. So being able to whittle away at with those super effective hits can put a lot of pressure on an opposing Urshifu. To wrap up with Water Urshifu, Rapid Strike has become the more popular of the forms and one of the most dominant Pokemon we've probably seen in VGC in a while. This thing has, I think it's currently like 23 to 24%. It is the #1 water type in the format right now, especially with its signature ability and move that just makes it oppressive to play against. I expect to see Water Urshifu keep carrying on into Series 11, especially with the return of Colossal. Waterfu can struggle when it gets to fall behind a little bit, but one misplay can easily put it back on top and put it right back at the forefront. So definitely be wary, make correct plays, don't get sloppy in front of it. One Surging Strikes might be enough to take you out in one go. And with the sheer variety of sets that it has, it can be hard to predict what exactly Waterfu is going to do at any given moment. Like we saw close combat helping hand detect on the Mystic Water set. There was U-turn and Rock Tomb on the Choice Scarf set, Aqua Jet, which was on the Focus Sash set. So there's a whole lot of options for Urshifus to play outside of Surging Strikes and close combat. So stay sharp, be aware of what's going on with it. Try to pinpoint its item fairly quickly, because if you can pinpoint the item, you might be able to figure out the set just before it can take you out. And with that being said, I want to thank you all for hanging out and listening to me ramble about Water Urshifu today. Make sure to check us out on Twitter, LR Lessons, Mr. Missouri 25, Musical VGC. All of that's on screen. Go take part in the polls. They go up on Friday. Should be one up today. Should be up by now, I think. I'm not sure who's going to be in it right now. I think Mimikyu's probably coming back again. We might put Charizard back on there. I'm not sure. We'll find out on Friday. Check out the Discord. Link is in the description down below. Our Discord is great. We talk about Pokemon. We talk about Unite, VGC. We talk about football. Basketball's getting ready to start back up again, so that's going to be another talking point for a while. There's a whole lot going on in the Discord. I can't recommend coming and joining us enough. And remember to hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications for when new videos go live. Comment down below who you want to see suggested for Twitter polls and things like that. Would love to hear your feedback on all this. And remember to have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're at in the world. And we'll see you all on Saturday for another episode of Laddering. Bye, everyone.